Welcome to Give a Heck. I am your host, Dwight Heck, and for much of my life, lived my life in quiet desperation, wondering how I was going to pay the bills, take vacations, save for retirement, and one day wondering if I would get off the hamster wheel of life and have purpose. A life that most of society lives, which takes us to work, then home, then repeat, and pays us hopefully enough just to survive. The harsh truth that most live with more month than money and have no idea how to live life on purpose, not by accident. This ensures the mass majority are living not just financially broke, however emotionally and mentally as well due to financial pressures. In each episode, I will introduce you to thoughts, ideas, and guests that can help you to learn how you too can live life on purpose, not by accident. Good day and welcome to Give a Heck. On today's show, I welcome Matt Sweetwood. Matt Sweetwood is the CEO and co-founder of Insurious, the insurance platform that protects your most valued gear and equipment in 7 minutes or less. He is an internationally known professional speaker, author, and consultant. Matt is a serial entrepreneur, including having scaled a company from 1 million to 100 million with a successful exit. However, his greatest achievement is having raised 5 successful children to adulthood as a single dad. He is a frequent national TV and publication contributor and has a #1 best-selling book, Leader of the Pack: How a Single Dad of 5 led his kids, his business, and himself from disaster to success. I'm excited to share with the listeners of Give a Heck the remarkable journey of Matt Sweetwood, as Matt and I have a lot in common, as we both have 5 kids and raised them as single dads. I'd like to welcome you to the show, Matt. Thanks so much for agreeing to come on and share with us some of your life journey.
Wow, after that introduction, that's it. I don't have anything to say. We can just end it right there. My ego is swelled. Now, of course, how could I not be on with a fellow single dad of 5? I mean, it's not possible. I mean, that's amazing, right?
It is amazing. Like I still, just so the listeners know, I had the pleasure and honor of listening to you get interviewed by one of my mentors and good friends, Tony Watley. And at the end of the podcast, some people don't realize he puts his in a special group. There's only 100 and some of us that we can go and watch his podcast be recorded live, and we get to ask questions. And that day I had a canceled appointment, and I was able to go on and listen, and I had the pleasure of being able to ask you some questions. And then Tony encouraged you to be a guest on my up and coming podcast. And life is like a spider when they start their web, and it just spiders out everywhere. It's led me to you, and I'm so blessed and honored to have you on the show. My first thing I'd like to ask you about, and you probably get this a lot, but I think of it differently than most, right? People will say, well, what's your, tell me about your life. I think about it as, what's your origin story, Matt? Like, what key things from your childhood to adulthood that led you to want to be an entrepreneur? What is your origin? What, from your earliest recollections, what made it what you want to actually get to the spot that you're at?
That's interesting. I think for me, it's actually pretty straightforward. Before I answer that, though, let me just say that, I like your spider comment, but everything happens for a reason, right? 2 single dads of 5 meeting, just like that and ending up together. Obviously, there's something, there's a bigger purpose in that. We don't always know what that bigger purpose is, but you just feel it, right? Something bigger about it. So origins for me are easy. I've been in business, I went from breastfeeding to business. And that literally is true. My parents were first generation Americans, came over here from Eastern Europe, Poland and Russia, and they were born here, but I always get confused. No, they're actually first generation, has 2 meanings. They were the first ones born here, in the 1920s, and their goal was to make money. They went into business. And so I was around business from the time I was a very little boy, literally working in a warehouse, working in business. I would sit in front of my dad and mom's desk and listen to them. And my mom managed the office, and my dad did the business deals and stuff like that. So I learned very, very early. I have some great memories of those times of counting cash, back in the day when cash, people actually did it, and I just went on deliveries when we would deliver merchandise and heard people on the phone. And I ended up actually as a teenager, really teenager, late teen, when computers first came out, I actually wrote all the software that ran that business. So I've had a long journey in business before I ended up, sort of running things myself.
Wow. You brought up Russia. My family actually, European based, and about 100 and I think it was about 105 years, my family was considered German Russians because they went from Germany to Russia. When Russia was so desperate to learn how to farm and take care of things, my family,
Mhm.
my dad's side of the family, they moved to Russia and were there for over 100 years. Just before the Bolshevik Revolution, they fled, shirts on their back, ended up in North America, some in the US, some in Canada. And then you talked about dealing with your dad. And while I worked with my dad in a farm equipment dealership, I had to be able to count cash. Like he literally,
Yeah.
what? You don't just dump it in their hand. You got to count the change out. You got to count it up to the value they give you. If it's $1.95, they give you $5. You count it from that. Oh yeah, he was very stickler about that. And he
Hmm.
talked about programming. I've done that for a living as well. Actually, before I
Yeah.
got into a finance, I was an IT consultant and owned a consulting firm. But I started programming when I was about 14, right?
Yeah,
And
there you
back
go.
in
I
the
did
early
it in
80s.
high school. Yeah, I
Yeah,
taught myself
yeah,
how to
yeah.
program.
Me,
Programmed in Business Basic. I've used Fortran.
me
Talk about
too. I've done Fortran too. Oh yeah, I've done. It's amazing how much we
see,
have in
that is the
common.
secret. If you program in Fortran, you end up as a single data five. There we found the commonality. Okay, it's the Fortran. Blame
Oh,
it on
that's
Fortran.
hilarious. Well, yeah, life again, back to that spider web. We started this, the spider starts the web and it goes out everywhere. I'm so blessed again.
Mhm.
Sorry to the listeners, but I'm really appreciating having Matt on the show. It's nice to have people that you can connect with both in heart, body, and soul, right? So thank you for that. You're considered to be a serial entrepreneur, stepping from many different types of companies through your lifetime. Each one you are learning more about business, and each one you are bringing enormous value from the previous. Now you are the CEO and co-founder of Insurious. I hope I'm saying that right.
You are.
The platform for seriously easy equipment insurance. What exactly got you into this venture after recently being the CEO of Luxnow, a high-end company for helping the rich and affluent, sharing a marketplace for luxury autos, homes, and yachts? Like, really, where's the commonality between those two? What made you get into doing Insurious?
Okay, so this is a really interesting, I think this is a very valuable entrepreneurial kind of story. So Lux Now is still running, and we're still hoping to get Lux Now off the ground. But Lux Now is a hospitality business, a luxury travel business. And that's not a very, very good business to be in during COVID, right? Because travel has come to a stop. The company has a lot of inventory in Miami and New York, South Florida and New York, and these areas were heavily affected. And like all the travel business, from the airlines to the hotels to even Airbnb, if you remember the CEO of Airbnb, which is very similar to what we do, he said it took 12 years to build the platform, and in 6 weeks it was all gone. So that business was heavily impacted. But when you're running a luxury marketplace and you have very high-end autos and homes and yachts like we do at Lux Now, there's an insurance component to that. And that sort of gave me an entree into the insurance business. And while the Lux Now business is in a little bit of a stationary period until travel restrictions are really opened up, it was an opportunity to have connections in that insurance business. And coming from the photographic business where I spent 28 years, that's the company I scaled before I exited, there's a huge need for insurance and a huge need for access to insurance. For example, camera equipment is the most stolen item on earth practically.
Wow.
And people think that things like their homeowners insurance and so on cover it, but it doesn't. You go out with your camera, you lose it, it's stolen, it's broken, you drop it, whatever, there's no way to cover it. And I ran a camera distribution business and a camera store for a long time. And this would happen literally almost on a daily basis. And so we were able to develop, it's a fintech product that allows you to get equipment insurance. And I'm not just talking about for cameras, I'm talking about for bikes, for musical instruments, really almost any kind of valuable equipment that leaves the home, even in the home in some cases, that leaves the home, we provide very easy access to insurance. You don't need to speak to anybody. You go on the site, 7 minutes, you fill out, and you're insured, and it's very economical. Right now, the rate's about $12.50 a month for about $6,000 a year worth of insurance. So if you think about it, it's a pretty amazing product. And there is no product like that. In addition to that, the product covers you against things that aren't normally covered, like earthquakes and hurricanes and natural disasters, even
Wow.
terrorism and so on, God forbid. And so it's a very unique product. It doesn't exist in any kind of form like that. And we're literally, as we're doing this interview, in beta test. We're just about to launch and market the product full time. So we're very excited. And that's a product that doesn't require travel. It's unaffected by the pandemic. In fact, people, I think, are more aware of being more secure, and this provides the kind of protection. So, I was in a business that could not be more heavily affected by the pandemic. And while that business is sort of, like I said, that business will pick up again, huge pent up demand for luxury travel. Right now, we're focusing on building that insurance platform, that fintech platform. So I'm really excited about that. And it's an example of never wanting to sit still and just sort of let nature happen to you. You want to be in control to some extent of what goes on.
Oh yeah, I took a look. I did some. Well, I'm a type A type of person, very analytical. I researched Luxnow, and I researched Insurious, and I looked at the Facebook page, and I read that, and I thought, wow, that's a pretty big pivot. But now it makes sense why you've done it. I did think, obviously, anybody with common sense, which isn't so common, would think about the fact, well, we're in a pandemic. We're looking at high-end people with some wealth that want to, share stuff, rent it, like you said, like the Airbnb style. So the Insurious thing gives you access to the middle class and below, right? Even the wealthy will do that, but
Yeah, this is a product. Insurance is a product for everybody.
yeah,
I mean,
I
it doesn't
find
matter
the
whether you
wealth.
have. There are people that take trips that go on trips or have $10,000-$20,000 worth of camera equipment. They have very high-end bikes. I mean, you know how expensive racing bikes are and high-end bikes can be. They have musical instruments. They have a laptop. How
Yeah.
many people are walking around with Mac Air 19s or whatever the heck they have
Yeah,
out there?
yeah, yeah.
And what about the parents who send their kids off to college with these fancy iPads and this and that, and they get lost or stolen or damaged? Our insurance actually covers that. We're excited about the college market too. It's a really, really big market. And like I said, there's nothing like this product out in the marketplace, nothing.
Well, and I
So
couldn't find anything. I'm the type of person that researched it. I thought, wow, this is kind of interesting. I wonder if they have this in Canada. Damn, they don't. And then I was looking, and then back to my comment where I mentioned that it really is something that'll be appeasing to, not appeasing, but attractive to the middle class and poor. But then on the flip side, when I was thinking that last night, where I was going to interject, is the wealthy, just because you have money and it can get damaged and you can go buy it again, you still like to use other people's money to replace your stuff, right? So
well, I always say
if you
that,
can do it at a discount, right?
people got wealthy for a reason, not by wasting their money. Right?
Exactly.
And this product is so
I love
good.
it. I love it.
The product is so good. I actually
Yeah.
sometimes go back and check myself. I'm like, we're really doing this? So and like I said, the other aspect of it is we call it seriously easy insurance, because
Yeah.
one of the dreads of insurance is, having to deal with an insurance agent. Nothing against insurance agents. But
That's
it's like
me.
anybody who sells you something, and you're sitting there,
Yeah.
I want to insure my camera. I don't want to have phone calls. I don't want to have all this stuff. You just go online, you fill out a form. You can do it in about 7 minutes if you type, at a reasonable rate, and you have insurance. That's it. You enter your credit card and you're covered.
I think that's amazing. So as a final note on that, you just need to come to Canada once you got things set up.
That may happen sooner than you think.
You'd be shocked how many, myself, I'm a value-based person. So like we talked about the wealthy using a product like that, my kids, I helped my daughter and her common law get into a house here this summer, helped them buy a house, and they need a new washer and dryer. So a week ago, I helped them purchase it because, 3 little kids, not a lot of money. And I looked at the extended warranty and I thought, okay, I called a friend of mine that's an appliance repair technician. I said, what's the most expensive part on this unit? And then labor cost to replace it. Well, it was triple the amount of cost it was going to cost me for 5 years of warranty. So I look at the value of what I'm paying for. Not all extended warranty is good, but what you're offering for the cost is amazing. So,
That's right.
especially when it's talking about expensive camera equipment. I had a client of mine lose over $10,000, got stolen when they were in Mexico a couple of years ago.
What a surprise. I told you.
Home insurance didn't cover it, like
Of
you
course.
said. They lost 10 grand worth of camera equipment, and it was
But by the
lost
way,
by the airline.
that story happens literally when I was running a very large camera store in New Jersey, that I would hear a story like that literally once a day. Camera equipment is one of the most, if not the most, stolen item on earth. Disappears all the time. And our insurance, I just want to emphasize, it's not a warranty. If the camera breaks, the warranty covers it. But if it's stolen, it's lost, you drop it, it's whatever, it's covered. And
Yeah.
so, this is a situation where, this insurance, like I said, just didn't exist before, and it's a really needed product. Bikes, another thing that are heavily stolen. Particularly you have a high-end bike. If you're smart, I lived in New York City for a couple of years. Nobody has fancy bikes there because the defense against getting your bike stolen is just to have a bike that's worth about $29. It has a few bangs and bends on it, and then nobody steals it. But I mean, you put a fancy bike, I don't care what kind of lock you put on in New York City, it's gone. So
See,
anyway,
you've
like I
added.
said, very excited about this product. We believe that this product will scale up very quickly. From an entrepreneur's perspective, it's a very great product because you have multiple verticals. That, of course, creates a challenge because you need a different marketing plan into each vertical. But we're first going to go into an area that I'm very familiar with, and you'll see some marketing in that camera photography market.
I think it's amazing, though. It just dawned on me. One of the things you're also giving people with a fabulous product like that, like you said, it's not a warranty. It's more of like if it gets stolen or whatever the case may be. But when people get their stuff stolen, and I'll go back to the client I mentioned where their stuff was stolen at the airport. They never got it off the plane, in which they should have never checked it. But regardless of that, it's a violation. You feel violated. So you're giving people a peace of mind so that they still feel violated by their stuff being stolen, but knowing that they're protected by a fabulous product to replace that makes the healing process of the violation of the theft, I believe anyway, that much greater to get over. Is that something that you thought about, that it would help?
Of course. Well, I mean, I didn't think about it. Insurance, this is the nature of insurance. Insurance provides comfort. It provides emotional comfort for you. That's why I think it's one of the drivers behind insurance. I mean, the most emotional insurance you can buy is life insurance.
I know.
Because you don't benefit from it, right?
Yeah.
I have a great story. I don't remember whether I mentioned in my book. I have
Go ahead.
I had one of my ex-wives sort of come after me and say, "You're wasting our money on life insurance," as if I'm benefiting from it.
No, I don't remember that being in the book. But
Yeah, I don't think maybe I did. But I think I wrote about this in one of my articles.
I've been doing.
But I'm just saying, you don't benefit off life insurance, but it gives you peace of mind to know that if something happens to you, your family is protected.
Yeah.
Right? Ultimate protection.
Absolutely.
For particularly, I mean, you have little children, right? You're managing children. I always worried about that. If something happened to me, what would take care of my children? So I'm a big believer in insurance, particularly from a quality, insurance provider. I think that that's a fundamental way to provide that kind of emotional security that you talk about.
Yeah, well, living in, you're giving a living insurance benefit with Insurious and life insurance. Again, I've been in this industry for 18 years as a financial planner. Insurance is about 30% of my business. The rest is, I do a lot of assets under management, do a lot of finance for clients and insured pension work. But bottom line, life insurance, when I talk to people and I goal set, I have a specific process I take clients through, building relationships, finding out what they want. But you hit the nail on the head. It's not about you. It's about those you leave behind.
That's right.
And the worst people I meet in life, Matt, just as a side note, would be people that say to me, "You know what? I don't care. I'm dead. That's their problem." And I have people that will say that to me, husband, wives, boyfriend, girlfriend. It's truly amazing to me how selfish, entitled people are, that it's just about them, even though they have a family. And I'm thinking to myself, how did you ever get to that point of having that family? Oh, wait a minute. You did it on accident. Now my mantra of living life on purpose, not by accident, fits right into your bill, right? You need to learn
Well, I
how to
think
think
that
about others and not be selfish.
narcissism is pervasive in our society. In
Yeah.
fact, narcissism is one of the fundamentals of my best-selling book that over there on my shoulder, my Leader of the Pack book, right? I
Yeah.
talk about, living with somebody who is narcissistic or, some form of that, and what we do. And, we see this permeate society all over the place.
Oh,
It's really a shame.
and it is. It's really a shame, but that's why I'm in the process, and this isn't to sell me, but it's just to remind the listeners that I'm working on and letting you know I pivoted and changed my whole business where I want to take what I've been doing for 18 years successfully in Canada and take it on a global basis, because everybody needs to learn how to live life on purpose, right? It doesn't matter where they live. It has nothing to do with specific products. It has to do with relationships. It has to do with getting to know people, asking questions, making them feel confident that you're there to give them a hand and coach them and mentor them on the journey of life. And life is about finance. It doesn't matter what it is. So I don't need to necessarily sell them a product if they're in Australia. I have people in Australia, people in Hawaii that want to work with me. And they say, well, how are you going to help us? Well, I'm going to take you through a process. It doesn't matter where you live. It's going to help you live life on purpose. And realizing that you're going to live a more fruitful, eventful, happy life. And,
I call
even
it a big
products.
life. I call it a big life.
Yeah, well, it is. And people just, it's so sad right now.
I'm
People
going
live
to
on a
flip your
hamster wheel.
concept a little bit.
Sure.
And this actually comes from some of the spiritual literature. It's sort of a Talmudic concept. But your purpose, your goal in life is to find your purpose, right? And once you find your purpose, it's much easier to live your life on purpose, right? Because you have the real goal, sort of to know what you're here for. I think for me, I struggle with that. I ran a business, and, okay, you're running a business. I was selling cameras, I was selling film. We did a lot of really good things. We invented some things. There's some really excellent things happen, but I never really felt like that was my purpose until one day I looked at my children, all 5 of them, blonde-haired and blue-eyed like their dad. I was, believe it or not, at one time. That was blonde up there, right? Yeah, we go to the same barber now, I know that. And blonde-haired, blue-eyed kids. And I said to myself, that's your purpose. You were put here to grow these kids and have them turn into useful, productive, amazing adults and productive citizens of society. And it really was a very rewarding moment. I knew that was my purpose. And living life on purpose actually helped me, raise them. There was sort of that epiphany you have. Of course, they're now up and adults and all successful and stuff. You read about it in my book. But I'm trying to find my next purpose. Right? That's what I'm out there for.
We all stumble through life to, again, look for and find our purpose. And again, that's why I want to go on a global level to help people figure that out through a goal setting system I developed. So you talk about the fact that you want to continue to look for your new purpose, and you're always reinventing yourself, it seems, which is fantastic. Do you have coaches yourself? Do you have people that you reach out to that will say, Matt, that's dumb, or Matt, that's amazing, or Matt, have you thought about it this way?
I think that's we call that person the wife, right, or the girlfriend, right? Who does. To be honest with you, I don't usually. I just listen. I'm a listener. And I try to draw inspiration from lots of people. I've always been like that my whole life. Like, I hope I walk off this interview and have learned something. I believe in, and this once again is a very spiritual concept, which is that you try to learn from everybody. And I make it a point to do that. I have sort of 2 rules of life that I live by, which I think are very powerful rules. And that is, number 1, I always try to make sure that every interaction I have, the person leaves me better off than they entered. And if that sometimes means when I'm buying a pack of bubble gum at the store, I leave the clerk with a little bit of a smile, or we're on a very serious podcast like I am right now, and hopefully you'll have left this interview with something you've gained from me or from my book or from my assets. And I listen to you very, very carefully. And so that's my second principle, is I try to learn from everybody. So I'm thinking about what you're saying to me, and particularly that what we were just talking about, living life on purpose. And I sort of immediately asked myself, am I living every day on purpose, or am I just floating? What am I doing? I just sort of had that little moment in the back of my mind, which I'll revisit. So I think that those are two very excellent principles to live by. And I think I don't want to sound meme-ish right now, but like I'm making a meme. But I think that if everybody lived by that, to make everybody else's day a little better, right? Make sure that everybody you interact with leaves you a little more positively, and try to look at every single person you interact with and learn something from them.
I taught my kids that. And the reason I can't stop smiling through this interview, man, I can't wait to someday meet you and have a cup of coffee and get to know you better, because I have a chapter. I was just going through it with my editor. There's a chapter in my book that talks about whether or not it makes the final. It talks about the fact that since my kids were little, I always taught them to be genuine and leave people better than they were. So if they walked into a store, and let's use pack of gum, you're buying a pack of gum or whatever, and you see something unique about that clerk. Maybe they're wearing a nice necklace, earrings, or their nice shirt or whatever. Be genuine, compliment them, because that could be the first thing they've had positive happen in their day, their week, their month. And that can be a little bit of fuel enough to help them get through their life. And I've done enough research to know that people have avoided depressive cycles or even suicide just because somebody being kind, having gratitude for leaving them better than you initially walked into that circumstance, and seeing them is so important. And I always teach my children, I tell my clients this when I coach them about, when I leave here from your house, we could have another 4 or 5 meetings, and I'm helping you get through your struggles, your tribulations, your trials. I want you to be happy that I'm coming back. And if you ever feel that you're not going to be happy that I'm coming back, let's have a discussion. Let's figure it out before it gets to a point where you close yourself off to getting help because I did something that you didn't particularly like, or you need something that I'm not giving you. Let's have that interaction, right?
Yeah, I think that you actually touched on a very important point. One of the speeches that I give, one of the talks, keynotes that I talk about, I do some for employment, human resource, and I've spoken in human resource conferences, led off conferences, and so on. And whenever you do that, you always get on some panel somewhere. And typically, I've had this question asked of me several times, which is, what is the criteria used for hiring? Because I've hired thousands of people in my career over my, 800 years in business. And and they always say, and you can't say like hard work and honesty, right? Because everybody says that, I want an honest, hardworking, person to come work in my company. So you can't say that. So, but what is the next most important quality that you always look? And it blows everybody away when I say this. I always say it's kindness. And that's not a trait that's usually associated in the employment world, in the business world. But I found that if you assemble a company of kind people, they're going to be kind to the customers. They're going to be kind to the suppliers. They're going to be kind to each other. And you're going to create a work environment which has a level of peace that creates a very high level of productivity and bliss in the workplace. And kind doesn't mean that people can't be aggressive, right? But there's a difference. And I find that, and certainly as I've gone through my career, I analyze people like that very carefully. And part of being kind is, are they going to fight with the other employees? Are they going to do things? How do they treat people? How do they do it? And I think for me, this is a fundamentally human concept. In the animal world, animals tend not to be so kind to each other, right? If two tigers come across a piece of meat, right? And then there's like a small little I don't know, gopher coming by gophers don't eat meat. I don't know, some small little animal comes by that wants to share the meat. I don't think those two tigers are going to share the meat. They're going to be like, that little raccoon looks hungry. We should we should show him some kindness. He's had a hard day, right? We ate all the big game. Now, I don't think that's going to happen. And I don't think the hungry tiger, right, is gonna save some leftover for the other one. I know packs have certain behavior and stuff like that, but just go with
Yeah,
the
I
concept.
get it.
Right?
I get it. Yeah.
Animals in general don't show kindness is a human emotion. God gave it to us to allow us to show it to other people, expects it of us, expects us to show charity and to show that kind of thing. So I think that if you surround yourself with kind people, use this as a primary trait, and create a business with kind people, I think your path to success is going to be faster, greater, and certainly much more enjoyable.
Yeah, kindness is so it's unique actually because it doesn't exist on a scale that people realize. And when I'm coaching my clients to be better spouses, better employees, better business owners, I always tell them, the path to, like, I'm a Catholic Christian and I'm a practicing Christian, and it doesn't mean that mine's the end all be all. But one of the things I learned growing up was, what people always say, kill them with kindness. But when you're kind to people, you obviously become, you're serving them. You're a servant of others. And if you're a good servant, you serve enough people with kindness, and also one of my superpowers is empathy, you become a natural born leader without even trying. And
That's right. Great point.
people don't even look at you like you're necessarily a leader. You have a chemistry, you vibrate at a same level when you're around one another. You may be
People
their
want to work for
boss.
you.
Yeah,
They want to serve. They want to
yeah,
work for you.
yeah, you may be their boss, but it doesn't mean that they treat you like a friend, because they know that you're going to smile at them. And if they're doing something wrong, you're going to do it with kindness. If they're hurting and there's problems at homes, you're going to have empathy. So kindness and empathy to me are key for being a good leader of human beings, and being that servant. If you're not, I'm going to be a servant the rest of my life. And because of that, I am a natural born leader, and I've had to accept that. Originally, I didn't believe that, but it's something that over, my 50 some years, I've learned that kindness is key for everything, absolutely everything.
I coach also, and a lot of times men come to me, for that proverbial dating coaching, right? And typically when they come, they've read all sorts of things about having the game and all sorts of this stuff. And I'm always like, it ultimately comes down to kindness. Like kindness, women are going to think that's weak. I'm like, no, not when it's done in the right way. And you sort of explain to them that if you're just kind to everybody, you get in the habit of being kind to everybody, you'll always have game, always. And if you just, and you sort of demonstrate the technique a little, and invite anybody who's interested, just reach out to me. I can explain the technique. But in any event, that kindness factor, I think, is just crucial, and would certainly make it, without like sounding like we're doing rainbows, lollipops, and unicorns, because neither of us guys look like lollipops, unicorns, and rainbow kind of guys. I think
Oh,
that the world would run a whole lot better.
yeah. And for the listeners, Matt, I seen yesterday, I haven't had a chance to read any of them. You've actually got articles that people can read that you've done. I forget what site I was on, where you're the author of them, the relationship articles and stuff. And honestly, I looked at it last night. I was just too tired. I had to do some other stuff. I'm going to read some of them, but for our listeners, Google's a powerful tool. Put in Matt Sweetwood. He's got so much great
Sweetwood, I'll give you
content.
my website. I'm msweetwood.com. I'm actually msweetwood everywhere, at msweetwood on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, everywhere. And I promise, if any of your listeners reach out to me, I will reply back. msweetwood.com. I've got literally hundreds of articles there on relationships and business. Obviously, my best-selling book, Leader of the Pack. You think it's a worthwhile read?
Awesome. Oh, it's very good, honestly. And I'm the type of person that's straight up. This is a side note. If I read something and I like it, or I comment, it's never phony. It's actually real. If I liked your comment, you put something on, let's say, Instagram or Facebook or whatever, um, you know, I've actually done it. I can't stand people that are phony and think they're doing you a favor by not actually connecting on a level that's honest and truthful. So
Well, you listened to my book on Audible, right? I
yeah,
think.
absolutely. And swear to you, I listen to it because I do a lot of it. So if I'm driving that 20 minutes,
Hmm.
And I got my screen on my vehicle, ties to my Audible on my phone. And there was times where I literally would be driving and stop, and I knew I had 10 minutes before I had to go into an appointment, and I'd hit the little button to rewind it and listen to certain points again. It resonated with me that much. I really enjoyed it. So I know my listeners, you do not have to be a single dad to enjoy it. It's the
My
story.
book is, my book is,
Realizing
yeah.
people that, you know, the ability to tell a story and resonate does not always have to do with, you know, the end result of him being a single dad and scaling businesses. It's about connection,
My
commonality
book is
that
about
you can
leadership,
see. Yeah,
and overcoming,
absolutely.
and how to find your way through difficult, things that happen to you, very, very difficult things when you
Yes.
think life is in a really difficult spot or you just want to be more successful. My book is really, that's why I call it
I
Leader of
loved
the
it.
Pack,
I loved it,
right? It's really,
honestly.
it's a totally a leadership book.
And I'll make sure that in the show notes that we talk about, have your website in there and talk about the book. So one of the things we were just talking about, um, as we talk about leader of the pack, we talk about leadership through kindness and serving others. I love our conversation, by the way. Obviously, I'm not going to get through all the points I put down here, but one of the things I wanted to ask you, what would you say in your life are there some of the things you wish you had done better as a leader of others?
Oh, that's easy. I mean, I wish I was a way better father than I was. I mean, there were, you can sit there, we can sit there and beat our chests, and I can tell you, I don't
Yeah,
want to
of
spoil
course.
the book too much, but my kids are all, super successful, graduated from top colleges, everything looks good. But there were many times, when, I was going through very difficult times. It was, my wife left me. I was struggled with my own loneliness. I struggled with my own weight. I always had a weight problem. I'm in great shape right now, thank God. But always struggled with those things. And, a lot of times maybe I was a little selfish. And one of the things that I've had to learn through my whole life is obviously to forgive myself for all of that. But I think that if I could do it again, that would be the thing that I would want most. Is I would really want to be a better parent and, do really a better job and make my life better for, a little better for my kids and a little easier for them, because they went through some very difficult times, as you'll read about in my book.
Yeah.
But for me, that's really it. If I could fix that, that would make things a lot better. And then, of course, I probably would buy Apple and Amazon stock. Um, about 20 years ago, take all of my money
Netflix
and,
too. I'd buy
yeah, okay,
Netflix too.
Netflix, Tesla, I don't know, pick a few. Okay,
Yeah,
let's let's
exactly.
let's compile the 1980 stock portfolio, go back in time. And so, you know what? Forget about that whole thing I said about parenting. Who cares? If I had just done that, I'd be able to give them so much money, they'd forgive me for all the stuff I did to them.
Oh, I love it. But you know what? Everything you said is so true. I have a lot of the same things that I've gone. You know, my kids are all adults now too. None of them are in jail. That's my biggest success.
Right. By the way, that's my line. I'm like,
I
actually, it
say it
comes
all
right
the
out of my
time.
book, right? I looked at them when these little kids, I'm like, this is what kept me in the game. I'm looking at them, I'm like, if I don't do something, these kids are going to end up in jail. They're going to walk into a church and shoot people, right? They're going to be on drugs, or they're going to be in jail. So it's on you, Matt. You better do something, or you're going to have a hard one to explain. And you should know that if you write a book about raising 5 kids, right, they probably all turned out pretty well, because, if one of them ended up being like a serial killer, you probably can't write the book about being a single dad of 5, right? But then the book becomes about how I raised the serial killer.
Yeah.
Right? So no, I don't believe any of my kids are serial killers.
Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah. You know what, though? You did your kids a great service. Where you're not perfect. I'm not perfect. But by writing that book and being vulnerable, um, you're helping so many people. And again, like we talked about earlier, there'll be people that'll never respond or do
I
reviews
know
of
there
your
are.
book.
I know
But
there are.
but you know what? You've touched people, brother. You touched me in that book, and listening to it, obviously, I can resonate at a different frequency than other people reading it because of being a single dad of 5 kids, struggling, abusive wife that I was originally married to mentally, and there was physical stuff that I went through, not from me to her, the other way. It was very hard, and your book is a blessing. So no matter what you did wrong, you did the end result. The right thing is you put it on paper. Your kids, I imagine, are super proud of you. They may not agree with everything that you decided to put in a book or do in the book. You
That
can't please everybody, but you know what? it's not about just them. It's about serving the world,
You
serving
know
the
what I
general
did too, by the way?
population.
I will freely admit that when I had my final manuscript, I handed it to all 5 of them. And I said, if there's anything in here that really upsets you, let me know. Because my kids are the most important thing to me, having commercial success with a book or getting a book
Yeah.
out there, even helping other people. And so I actually did that. And there were a few changes in the book as a result of that. They just felt uncomfortable about the way I said something, talked about it, and I did make a few changes to the book because the anecdotes and things like that didn't ultimately materially affect the message. But I will tell you that and anybody who writes a book will tell you, unless you're a very famous person, very famous, even though I have a big social following and stuff, it's not the same thing as being, famous, is that you're not going to make money off a book. You spend an enormous amount of time writing it, putting it together, getting it out there, marketing it, getting people to give you reviews, and it's not a moneymaker. For me, the reward in the book is, right now, I think I have 137 5-star reviews here in the US on Amazon, probably more, as we talked about before, in other countries. But if you read the reviews, people talk about it changing their lives, making them realize things about their current relationship, making them see things in business that they didn't really see, making them feel like they too can get there if you did this. Because, as you know, my book is a big mea culpa. It's I talk about all of the incredibly stupid things I did and repeatedly did until I figured them out. And I talk about how to figure those things out a little bit in the book. So for me, it's those reviews and the people that come to me, and I know there's people out there. I just had somebody write me a few days ago. She was a Facebook friend of mine. I don't really know her, but I don't know her personally. I just, we've been Facebook. You know how it is on Facebook, yeah.
Yeah, of course.
You connect with.
Connections.
And she wrote me this private message. She goes, I read your book. It changed my life. I can't believe you went through that. I now understand so many things in my life. It really helped me. Bless you, bless you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
You know what?
And when you get stuff like that, I mean, it makes it all
priceless. It's priceless. If I haven't already made sure the listeners understand, I appreciated it. And I thank you for, being vulnerable and writing it. And after listening to that book, and then I was getting encouraged for years to do, my book won't necessarily be, it's going to be so much different in the sense there'll be little stuff about, lessons and stuff about giving a heck. But well, that's one of the things I want to, close up here with. There's a couple more quick things I want to talk about is, if you had to give our listeners one last closing message, what would you tell them in regards to giving a heck and never giving up?
I mean, it's the standard line. You haven't failed until you quit, right? It's as simple as that. And I want to say that with a caveat, because sometimes you need to cut your loss, right? I come from a very competitive electronics business. And there's a saying in that business that sometimes the first loss is the best loss. Okay? So sometimes you have to take your lumps and move on. But make sure you're doing it with, not because you don't feel like it or you're quitting. You're doing it out of the best decision. But in general, you haven't failed until you quit. And I have a personal slogan that I live by, that it's actually my personal motto. Everybody has one. It's not a marketing thing. I actually live by it. And I always ask myself the following questions, very simple question. How badly do I want it? Because I am a firm believer that if you want something badly enough, you will do whatever it takes to make it happen. So sometimes when I'm in business projects or I'm coaching somebody or I'm just doing something, even, I'm working out, I'm in Florida now. I lived in New York and New Jersey almost my whole life. I'm in Florida. Took up golf again, right? And I wasn't playing golf as well as I thought. And I'm like, why aren't you playing as well as you thought? I'm like, because you don't really want this badly enough until you really want to play. And I use that most silly example, but I use that. And until I, 2 months ago, I got very serious about it. I go, okay, this is not going to happen by magic because you feel like going out there to play. Golf is a technical sport. You have to know what you're doing. You have to have a proper swing. You have to just know every detail of the game. How badly do you want? Well, I decided I wanted, shooting 84 my whole life was not working for me. I want to shoot 74. So we're well on our way to do that, but it's requiring some effort and, sore hands. My thumb right now is a little sore because I hit so many balls. But anyway, I say this in your business life, and I use this as my children as an example. I think it's a fundamental principle of my book. I looked at those little kids. When my wife walked out, my youngest was 18 months, my oldest was 8. 5 kids, 18 months through 8. And I looked at it and I said, I don't want them going to jail. I don't want them, just like you said. And how is this going to happen? I don't want to raise, I don't want to do this, right? I'm a young guy. I don't want to have 5 kids for the next 20 years, take care of. And then I looked at them, I said, if you love them enough, you're going to figure out what to do. And it was just a question of wanting to have them and our family life be successful badly enough. And so I was willing to do whatever it took, whatever sacrifice it took. You know, I would, like I said, I wish I did a better job, but whatever. I still was there the whole time. I did whatever it took. And business was like that. My electronics business required reinvention over and over again. We almost went out of business a couple of times. You can imagine the technological advances that happened over the last 25 years. My company was a film seller. We were like one of the largest sellers of film in the country. In a very short amount of time, film was gone. We used to sell small stores. The small stores all went away. We had to pivot off that. So it's really just a question, and I couldn't let my business be a failure. So it was just a question of how badly you want it. So this is what I tell your audience out there. This is, you know, you're talking about having a purpose, having whatever it is. If you want something badly enough, just make it happen. Do whatever it takes. And if you're not, maybe you just don't want it badly enough. Simple as that. And I do say that to myself sometimes. I say, you know, maybe this is not going well because I really just don't want it badly enough. And that's okay. Right? That's okay sometimes. But if you're not being successful, ask yourself the question, do I want it badly enough? How badly do I want it? If I want it badly enough, I'll make it happen, do anything.
Yeah, and you know, you talk about people wanting badly enough. I know myself, it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's raising kids or it's getting into business or just trying to accomplish a new hobby, like you're talking about golfing or whatever. People quit so close to the finish line and accomplishing and reaching that next pinnacle or that that, you know, that temporarily camping spot where they, you know, they appreciate what they've done and they forget to continue to climb, and then they quit because they don't see just over the mountain is their win, and they quit way too soon on all aspects of life. They just need to stay more focused and not be afraid of failure,
You have to
right?
be relentless. If you want something, you might not even be close to the finish line. It doesn't matter.
So
If
you
you
hit
want it badly enough, you just get yourself to the finish line. You just do whatever it takes.
push. And you know what?
You need to watch Rocky a few times, okay?
Yeah.
Watch the
And,
movie Rocky.
and analyze your associations.
How did a chump, overweight, almost over the hill fighter with a low IQ, I'm not saying Sylvester Stallone has
Yeah. I get what
I'm just saying the character, low IQ, right? How did that guy fight the greatest fighter in the world to a draw? Because he wanted it badly enough. The whole movie personifies how he wanted to be competitive and to show that he wasn't a chump so badly he was able to fight at a world-class elite level well beyond his capability. And you know, people understand the simple concept of Rocky, right? Underdog, fought hard, it feels good. But that movie has significant philosophical brilliance because it's really a test to the human spirit of wanting not to fail badly enough that you can perform at a world-class level, even at that, if you want something badly enough. To me, I took that lesson with me my whole life.
Great movie. I've seen it, I don't know, at least a dozen times.
Yeah,
I
me
can
too.
still remember
I've
when
seen
it
a bunch
came
of
out.
times.
And if you actually read what Sylvester Stallone, well, it was the whole thing was about him, about the struggles he went through, but put into a different way for people to be able to relate better. He's actually a very good storyteller, more so than people give him credit for.
Well, people think he's dumb because he played the character, but he wrote the story.
Yeah,
That story
but
is
most
him.
people don't know that. You know,
But-
you could probably ask 10 people out of 10 people in a room of 100 might actually know that. The other 90 have no clue. They're just like, okay, you know what I mean?
Right.
They just,
Oh, Adrian.
Adrian.
No,
Yeah.
there's a really good story behind Rocky is that he actually was offered money for the script.
Big time, yeah.
He was offered money for the script, but they said you couldn't act in it. You couldn't be part of it. We'll just pay you for the script. And he said no. And he ended up having to like sell his car,
Yeah.
he had to like hock his life. Like he sold his dog. That's why there's a dog in the movie, right? Because he actually sold his dog to get money to try to go on, and eventually he produced the movie and
I'm
obviously
sure. I
started
think
in
you
the
went
United States.
back after the fact and bought that dog back, though, if I remember.
Yeah,
the story.
right. I think you're right,
Yeah.
actually. Yeah.
So our time is up. I want to respect
Do you
our
mean that
listeners.
in the big sense?
You
Do I have to say
what?
my final prayer? No.
You know what? That's one thing. If I checked out right now, Matt, I wouldn't be on my, my last dying breath going, I wish I worked harder. I live a life of faith, family, work. I have since I was very little. And if I died right at this moment, I'd be blessed because I spent and sacrificed and invested so much to raise my kids, just like you, and at the bottom line, I've regrets are a waste of energy, right? I used to dwell on them. I don't anymore. So if it's my final call right now, and it's your final call after reading your book and getting to know you today, I think you're blessed and highly favored, just like I am, to, go to wherever you believe is the afterlife. For me, it's heaven, right? So, I really appreciate you being on the show today and sharing your experiences. Even though we've talked about it already, could you do me a favor and please tell the listeners again what the best way is to reach you? And also I'll make sure it's in our show notes too.
For me, very easy, msweetwood.com. I got my early social media adopter, so I got msweetwood. I got it on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, everywhere. I have a big social following, and I really actively use social media, so please reach out to me, msweetwood at msweetwood.com, at msweetwood or msweetwood.com. And Leader of the Pack, check it out. It's definitely
Yes,
worth the read.
please do. It is, right? And if you're like me and not a person that has a lot of time to pick up a book, use Audible. It's great on Audible as well. So thank you so much for being on Give a Heck, Matt. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your insight and your information. I appreciate the fact you wrote an amazing book. And yeah, you're such a kind individual. And, I hope the listeners check you out. And obviously, if you have any questions in regards to my experiences with Leader of the Pack or my journey through the 5 children, people reach out to me. Mine's just giveaheck.com. So thank you very much again, Matt. Have a fantastic.
It's been my pleasure. Look,
evening.
I mean, we're like bros, right? Single dads of 5. I mean, we're connected forever.
Absolutely.
And I'm waiting for that cup of coffee. You have to come to visit me in Miami. I hear we have good weather here.
Yeah, I haven't been to Florida in, oh goodness, it's been probably 10 years, but yeah, we'll definitely have to do that. So
When I look over my left shoulder right there, I'm looking out at the ocean.
Oh, please. I look out and I see snow on the ground.
What snow? What's that?
We have, yeah. You know that stuff that builds up on the inside of your freezer?
Yeah.
Out of your fridge?
You have that on the outside of the freezer? You got to get that.
Okay, Matt, I appreciate you.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
God bless you, brother. Thank you for taking time out of your day and listening to Give a Heck. If you find value, I'd appreciate you sharing with your friends and family so they too can learn how to live life on purpose, not by accident. So you do not miss the next episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and please also post a review. I look forward to reading your comments. This has been Dwight Heck. If you want to check out other podcast episodes or today's show notes, please check out my website, giveaheck.com. And until next time, together let us all strive to give a heck.